Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dumb and Dumbest podcast. This is a music industry podcast where everything is terrible and the house is on fire. I'm here with my beautiful, wonderful, balding co-host, Curtis Stewart.
And his cat, Ladybug.
Your cat's named Ladybug?
Yeah.
It's a terrible cat name. Do you know what my cat's name is?
The kids picked it, so you can blame the kids for that.
Okay. Well, do you know what my cat's name is?
Yeah, it's Matt Bacon Jr.
No, it's
Jim.
Admiral James Tiberius Fluffington III.
Well, all right.
So, regardless of whose cat's an admiral and whose cat's, a
bug.
What were we going to talk about today, Curtis?
Telling a story with your band, I believe is what it is.
Yes, exactly. So, how do you tell a story with your band?
Well, there's a million ways that you could do it, but the very first thing you got to do is you got to find something interesting about your band and turn it into something that can be made even more interesting. So, for example, if you have a circus worker as your lead vocalist, you could turn that into a story of sorts.
How? Elaborate. Keep going.
Well, let me think here. Like, depending on what the style is, but let's say he's a thrash metal vocalist. He's in the band. You could make that a focal point. Is that the Slayer-esque thrash band has with the circus working vocalist. So you could just be like, our singer Jim his day job is also as a circus worker.
A carny. A carny.
A carny. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. A carny, and you could talk something about his day job or something like that in your promotion, or you could maybe even put that as part of your motif for your band if you wanted to get all interesting and stuff like that. You could maybe have that as maybe dresses up as a carny when he sings. This is a bit of an extreme example, I know, but that's just one example right there.
Don't do a carnival theme. Everyone's been doing it.
I know. It's just, but if you have an actual carny as a vocalist, it might be a good idea.
Sure. Yeah.
For example, another good example is a person that I keep telling to use this as part of their story is Owlmaker's bassist is a librarian in a school, and I think she could use more of a book theme or a library theme to tell the band story. She does occasionally, but I mean, like, more, she could probably delve into it a little bit more, and you could get like the nerd image or something like that. You know what I mean? Or the educated image for Owlmaker if she so felt. I don't know if she really, maybe not go too deep into it because they're kind of a stoner metal band, but kind of like being like the educated stoner band or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I think stuff like that brings a lot of value to people, because I think that there's a lot of bands who are, I think that your audience is sometimes a lot smarter than people treat them.
And they also like to know more about you as a person generally. So if you work in a convenience store, you might think that's boring, but you could probably actually take the tales of some of the customers you've seen and take it and turn it into something interesting, and you could post about it on Instagram and relate it back to your band or whatever, right?
Exactly. These are all great ways to sort of differentiate and be like, look, this is who we are, this is what we're about, this is what makes us different. I know a couple bands that have like doctors or lawyers.
Yep.
But like,
Todd's a great example. He does show a little bit about him being a doctor sometimes.
Yeah, and the thing is, like,
interesting.
People, but the thing is, like, your fans are people too. Like your fans aren't existing in like a vacuum of like pure black metal excellence. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they're normal people out there too, and they appreciate that if it's presented in a cool way.
Yeah. But if you're a black metal band and you want to treat you could even make up a fictional story if you want, as long as you're clear it's fictional. You know what I mean? Don't be like a threaten, obviously, but you could be like, if you're a black metal band, you could pretend you like live in the hills somewhere in the backwoods, and you guys daily go out and do a ritual of sacrificing a goat or something like that, right? Just make it into a story, right?
Yeah, and that's just how you make yourself more memorable and exciting and different and all that good stuff. And you got to do that if
and
you
Ghost
want.
is great at doing that. Like, they're
Yes.
really good at that.
Yes,
Another band that's really good at that too has been Metallica over the years, because they will talk about themselves, and they'll talk about various different aspects of heavy metal and stuff like that, especially during the early days. And it wasn't necessarily like exciting, like, you know, dramatic stories that they would tell, but they would talk about their bands, and they would talk about their music, and they talk about their influences, and they would tell stories as a result through their interviews and their appearances, right?
Exactly. And I think that's really important if you're trying to sort of differentiate. And like, again, you're a lot of times with your story, even if your story is just, oh, we're a hardcore band of fucking kids from Jersey or whatever,
Yeah.
like if that's your story, cool, but just wear it on your sleeve, because odds are there's other hardcore kids from suburban areas who probably will like your band, you know. And even if you're not doing a hardcore, but you're just like, oh, that's just the world we come from.
Yeah.
Like, do you know how many people go to hardcore shows?
Quite a few.
Like, and like any like on any type of music nerd, you know, not just like metal nerds or whatever. Like any type of music nerd who goes to shows. Moby went to hardcore shows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The guys in fucking what was that band? Eagles of Death Metal were in hardcore bands. Like, you know, just talking about stuff like that, talking about where you come from, because there's sort of this shared cultural history, you know. So don't be afraid to be like, oh, I like RKL, because like there's other people out there who are like, oh yeah, that fucking RKL record was like Beastie Boys 4 years early.
Yeah.
You know, focus on what your origin story is and speak that truth, because people appreciate when they're not being bullshitted and when they get to see the honest side of someone.
Yeah, another person that does this really well is Dave Grohl.
Very much so.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to put that out there too, because he's fantastic at it. I'm not a Foo Fighters fan, but he is amazing with his own PR and with telling stories.
Yeah, and he was in hardcore bands. He was in that band Scream.
He was. Yeah, he was, and he was in one of the most influential bands of all time. Besides that, well,
yeah, the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, two of them now. Foo Fighters and Nirvana. Yeah,
exactly. Like, yeah, but like that's the thing is like he understands that he's constructing a narrative.
Yeah,
and he understands, you know, and he makes it fun because he ties in all the weird shit, and he's very careful. You can see to make it be like, oh, like I'm like a rock guy, but like not just like all about fucking weird old hardcore, you know. Even though he could totally just talk about weird old hardcore and get away with it, but he doesn't. He also talks about like, oh, I like Aretha Franklin, and other stuff, you know, even though like, you know, and he does it in a very smart way too, where he's almost endearing himself just as much to fans of Aretha Franklin and whoever the fuck else, you know, as he is like when he's bowing to fucking Ron Holzner from The Skull and Trouble.
Yeah, he's very hard to dislike just because he has this personality where he's very, 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 where he tells good stories, and he's just a very hard person to dislike, whether you like his music or not. Even if you don't like his music, I don't think many people would say that they have a bad opinion of Dave Grohl.
Yeah, even if you think, you know, like I'm not a huge fan of his bands. I'm a little bit aggravated that he won't let the next Sunny Day Real Estate record come out. But like, guess what? He also has done so much for so many more genres than like I think almost anyone else.
Yep.
You know, like he's very you know, self-aware of the value he brings the scene. You know, another person who does this well is John Baisley from Baroness.
Yep.
You know, is another guy who's just like, yeah, I'm just a music fan like you.
Another person also does really good with telling stories, not in a nice way necessarily, is Tommy Lee. Tommy Lee is fantastic with his storytelling.
Yeah.
He's a douche, but he's great at it.
And this is just how we communicate as humans. Like, don't think that we're trying to get you to like hack into people's brains or something. This is just how humans communicate, and we just want to share that, you know.
We're just trying to give you some examples of good storytellers.
You know, but again, there's a ton of small bands who do that. Baroness, I mean, are obviously a pretty big band, but they've been doing that sort of thing since they were very small. You know, any band who just want to talk about what it was like, where their lives were at. You know, like there's a reason Henry Rollins me and my boy Andy Patterson always laugh about like Henry Rollins being like how he starts all his stories with like the year was 1992. I was fucking 27 years old, and then he like tells his fucking story, and like
I think he was 40 in 1992, but
yeah, but like like he understands the marketing, the branding, et cetera, so just keep telling those stories, have your war stories there and speak that truth. Don't front, don't bullshit people, but just be willing to speak that truth, and the bands who just openly talk about it and who openly flaunt what they're into tend to get somewhere.
Yeah. And you want to just look at the bands that do that and try to emulate something similar, like to what they're doing, like to be authentic, though, obviously. So, I mean, take a look at Dave Grohl, take a look at Tommy Lee, take a look at Henry Rollins. There's probably dozens and dozens of other examples, but those are just a few off the top of our head.
Yeah. And like, literally just look for the guys in your scene who are like the cool old heads and look at how they present themselves and the way they tell stories.
Yeah. You know who's also pretty good just from a different genre, who's pretty good at presenting and telling stories that I've noticed, even though they sort of metal at the same time, but he's younger, is Skrillex. He's pretty good at that as well, even though
Elaborate, because I agree.
What's that?
Elaborate, because I agree.
Just because any interview you ever see with him, he's always got, like, he's very personable, and he always tells stories about things. He talks about his time in the metalcore band he was in. He talks about being in EDM. He talks about collaborations with other people. He's just very, very good. Like, he's just really, really good at telling stories as far as I'm concerned. Every time I've ever seen an interview with him, I've always been really impressed by him.
Yeah. And again, like, I know that you feel awkward and weird. Fucking teach yourself to not be awkward and weird. I was awkward and weird, and I fucking taught myself, okay? I went from being a fucking nerd to, like, someone with charisma by fucking observation. Like, it's not hard. I mean, it's hard, but, like...
It is hard. You just got to practice doing it.
If you want to know,
like talking to people, you just got to keep talking until you get good at it.
Like, doing interviews just taught me how to be, like, an easygoing, easy to get along with guy. Like, that's just where it came from. It's just, like...
And Matt probably started his entire first interview. Or shook or something.
I did not, but what I can tell you is that I didn't like my voice when I was listening back to it to transcribe, so I actually changed my voice so it sounded better.
You deepened it?
I deepened it, and I had less of like a nasally nerd voice after that.
That's awesome. But anyways, these are just some of the people that you guys should be taking a look at, and just it really helps to especially when you're doing an interview, if you can tell a story to the interviewer, it makes it that much more interesting. Like 10 times better than just giving yes or no answers of, like they even said to you, what's your favorite kind of beer? And you just said Budweiser. But, someone else who was going to tell a story would tell a story about all the different types of beers that they like, right?
Yeah, and then just elaborating on that and going from there. And just, again,
exactly,
not being a weirdo, but being someone who's like, no, here's like some meaningful stuff behind this. Here's why I like this. Here's why I am this way.
Yeah.
And it's, it's only going to grow from there.
Yeah. A good book to read that tells you how to tell good stories. Well, there's a couple of them. Gary Vaynerchuk's, I think it was The Thank You Economy that he wrote. I think it was that one that goes over storytelling, and it was really, really. It might have been one of his other books, but I'm pretty sure it was The Thank You Economy. So, and the other one was .com Secrets. Is also pretty good at teaching people how to tell stories. There's a whole section in there about it that's really, really interesting.
Exactly. It's just how you do it,
Yeah.
Think about it, grow from there. It's not that complicated. Just observe. A lot of it is observation, and then literally the easiest story you can tell outside of your own story, obviously, but the easiest way to tell your own story, if you don't know how to do it, is post a record every week and post a cool memory you have associated with that record.
That's a great idea, Matt.
Like, literally, like, I tell bands all the time to do, like, shout outs to classic records.
Yeah.
Because, like, guess why? If you outline, all right, okay, I was listening to fucking Bang in 1984 because I found this record in a fucking bin in John's record shop in Brooklyn. that creates legitimacy, and that gives people a sense of who you are, that you were discovering Bang before the Big Bang and rediscovery happened.
Yep.
You know, like, that's just how it goes.
Yep.
That's just how you want to position yourself and market yourself and all that good stuff.
That's a great idea. If anybody decides to do that, let me know and tell me how it works. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Because you want to know something, it's going to fucking work.
I think it is going to work too. I'm just really curious to see how it works for people if they do that. I might even try that myself, to be honest, because I think that's great.
I'm very curious about what records you were listening to in 1984.
1984, I was like 7 years old. I was probably listening to Alvin and the Chipmunks. No, might have been Bon Jovi at that time. No, I wouldn't have been. 1984. I don't know. Probably Alvin and the Chipmunks. Maybe the Jungle Book.
Do you want to know what I was listening to when I was 7 years old?
What?
Judas fucking Priest.
I went out of the womb and I was listening to Judas Priest. Sure, man.
Well, no, I had an uncle. I actually, this is some storytelling. Between the age of about 6 and 10, I didn't actually like music because like all I was exposed to was like pop music and country. And I was like, oh, this just isn't for me. And then I like started to discover like punk, and I like figured out Weird Al was funny to me, you know.
Oh yeah, I was probably had Weird Al in '84.
You know,
actually. Maybe even Michael Jackson.
Like that kind of like opened up some doors, and then like, oh, okay, like this is what punk is, and then Black Sabbath, done. Like, you know, Black Sabbath, Coven, you know, done. Like, it's as easy, you know. So point being, tell that story, because that's a fun story that I didn't actually like music for half my life, you know,
There you go.
until I realized like, oh, Black Sabbath and Coven are bands that will piss off my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So
I never even heard Black Sabbath until I was probably 16 or 17 years old.
Jesus Christ, when did you hear Coven?
Oh, probably not till I was 30.
Disgusting.
Well, but keep in mind, the internet wasn't around back until like 1998, and you couldn't really discover music on it until like 2002, 2003.
Okay,
so,
I'm sorry that you're fucking 55, Curtis.
But I'm 41. But so I mean, there was no way of finding out about Black Sabbath unless it was then they didn't have any videos, and much music and MTV were the only way to really discover things back then. Right.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I didn't know. I knew who Ozzy was, but I never had heard Black Sabbath, but I'd heard No More Tears and his earlier stuff.
Absolutely, that makes sense.
So,
anyway,
there's my story.
Before we get to rambling, now that we're telling stories with Matt and Curtis, what do you got to plug?
Excuse me. Apparently, I got to plug a cough. I think today the main thing that I want to plug is, I'm drawing a blank. Why don't you just download my ebook that if you haven't downloaded it yet, which is a guide on how to optimize your social media profile.
It's in the show notes.
What's that?
It's in the show notes.
It's in the show notes. Good. So download that, because I'm probably going to be doing another ebook pretty soon. I'm going to start emailing the list as well pretty soon. I've been sick for the last couple of weeks, so I've let it slide by the wayside. Oh, and also, if anybody's interested in knowing about when the compilation's happening, because I still haven't gotten that ready yet, I'm just waiting on some art. Hopefully my guy has time to do it this week, and he has time to do it. I'm hoping to still have it out by the end of the year. So anybody that sends me tracks, I'm not being a douche not releasing it. I am literally just waiting on the art. My guy got busy. It will happen.
There we go. See, Curtis Dewar says it'll happen. So guess what? It'll fucking happen.
It will. Just, I'm using someone for art. They're doing it as a favor to me. I don't really want to be a dick and be like, hey, fuck, hurry up, So
yeah, no, it's a tricky thing. So
yeah,
and the point being, we are all here because of our love of Black Sabbath. Even if some of us were stupid and discovered it later in life because we had bad taste or shitty family members who didn't educate us, Curtis.
Okay.
But anyway, thank you guys. Okay. Oh no, I have to talk about what I have to plug. Oh my god, sorry.
You're too busy making fun of me for not hearing a Black Sabbath when I was 16.
Yeah, I'm too busy mocking Curtis to do any plugs this week. I just want to plug a couple cool things I'm working on. A bunch of cool things I'm working on right now. Just check out the band Digital Array. I just took them on as clients. I think they're pretty nifty. We're going to be doing some cool stuff in the next few months. And yeah, they've just got some interesting ideas that I think will be bringing a lot of value to their fan base. So I just like saying the word value. I think that might be my entire raison d'etre, if you will.
Well, all right.
Anyway, well, thank you guys for listening. Take care of yourselves.
Are we done yet?